It's time for David v Chlöe at Parliament. David Seymour, the ACT leader, and Chlöe Swarbrick from the Greens. Good morning, guys.
What a run-in, mate.
How are you?
Good, thank you. David, sorry, I missed that. I missed you guys saying hello, but good to have you here. David, can you just give us a quick little run-through of the oil and gas ban reversal? Like, what's taken so long to even get to this point? You guys have been in power for a year and a half, more than. What's taken so long, do you know?
Well, I think the key challenge is that the ban really knocked the stuffing out of people's confidence in New Zealand. So it's partly about finding a balance between making sure that under the new rules people actually will want to come back here and that we're not going to have people leaving behind their equipment when they go in decades' time or creating other environmental damage. I can't emphasise enough just how damaging it was when a whole industry was told with no notice, no consultation, no reasoning, sorry, you're off. It's very hard to win back people's trust.
Yeah.
That's why the government's now in a position that I wouldn't normally support of actually offering to co-invest so that people who wanted to get into this business again are saying, oh, the government is actually for real at this time. I just also go back to what Russell Norman said a second ago. He said that, the government's lying because it takes 10 years for new gas to come on.
Average of 16.
He may be right about the 10 years to bring on a new well, but I don't think it helps to go around accusing people of lying, especially not if you're missing some of the nuance. And if you talk to people in the industry, they'll say that the destruction of confidence, the belief that there is no future, we're never going to find another well.
Yeah, it's a
This is now
massive
close
problem.
up, turn down the light.
Yeah.
That means there's less people working there, there's less investment, and it's not just a matter of a well goes on or a well goes off. In the practical world, in the world of an engineer, there's actually a lot of things you can do all the time to keep the production up. And that has not been done as much as it used to be, partly because of this loss of confidence.
I hear what you're saying, David, but I think the problem that the industry still has is that you've got an opposition who aren't having a bar of it. So how do you invest when Chlöe and Labour will one day get back into power and they're not going to have a bar of it? They're going to reverse the reverse on the ban. So does that...
That's why I get up every day to make sure that time is a long, long, long way away.
Chlöe?
It's a pity when your opponent is so young. I'm going to have to work for a while. But nonetheless, I take your point, and that's why the government has said, look, we as a Crown will actually put money down. Now, if you find gas,
all right,
make a lot of
David,
money,
we have to give Chlöe a turn. I feel like Chloe's going to pop one on you in a second. Chlöe.
I mean, I'm just sitting here patiently listening to all of the nonsense. But what David's talking about there, just to be crystal clear, Brian, is $200 million in taxpayer money being handed out to the fossil fuel sector to produce gas as early as possibly the official advice says.
I'm sorry,
in 10 years'
it would
time.
be taking equity in a company. That's different from handing it out, Chlöe. It's called investing. If they make money, then you get a share back. If they don't, then you lose it. You've got to know, if you ever do want to be in government, you should at least know the difference between a handout and an investment, and taking an equity stake versus giving a grant. And frankly,
if I can actually talk.
Yeah,
So
sorry, David.
Says it's nonsense. You're not really adding anything.
I get emails every single week, Ryan, after I've been on your show standing next to this guy saying that I stand here, my face does what it does in response to the things that he's saying, and I have to say to the people of this country, you have no idea how much I am restraining myself. But if we can just talk about the facts. The World Trade Organization defines a subsidy along the lines of something that a government is handing out that the private sector would not do itself with all of the other facts remaining equal. So it is a fact that what the government has done is handed out a $200 million subsidy of taxpayer dollars to the fossil fuel sector, a lifeline to this industry, when the opportunity cost is that investment potentially going into renewable energy, creating jobs for New Zealanders, building greater resilience for this country, which means that we're not seeing the massive increase in the cost of living, which is contributed to by the energy sector currently being dependent on fossil fuels.
Yep.
We're cycling around the drain on these issues, Ryan, and then we need to be making common sense investments in the modern world. We could be an incredible country. We have the talent and the know-how here, but this government's set on bringing us back to the future, or rather, back to the past.
There go those slogans. Look,
these are just facts. You can't keep accusing me of using slogans when I'm the only one who is consistently coming to the table with facts here, and the government, as Russell said, is lying to the New Zealand public about the fact that apparently our energy crisis was caused by the oil.
Do you know what's really hard?
About the World Trade Organization.
Do you know what,
definition
guys? Hang on.
It is a subsidy in that
You
sense.
go for it,
It's
Ryan.
really hard. It's really. Chloe's calling the shots now. It's really hard for me to be in
I haven't
Auckland.
really got a word in edgewise, but
It's really hard for me to be in Auckland while you guys are down there. It's so much better when you're both at the desk, like we used to do it. I wish we can get back to that point. However, we will move on from oil and gas. I want to talk about nurses. They're obviously going on strike today, David, and they're getting less than inflation in terms of a pay offer from the government. And yet we've got those people on the boards getting up to 80% more. It's not a great look, is it? Do you admit that it's not a great look?
Well, if all you're worried about is the look, then you can have that argument. But I just make a couple of points. One is that I think a lot of people may not appreciate quite where nursing has got to in the last few years. So it's 127,000. You know, if you're coming in as a starting nurse, it's 75,000. These have been serious uplifts in recent years. Now we're not doing as much because, frankly, we're in a pretty tough fiscal situation. And unlike the previous government, we know we can't just keep borrowing. So is that tough? Yep. Does it look bad? Yep. But that's actually facing a reality that was ignored for far too long. Just as a matter of fact, you know, nurses in New Zealand are now paid the same as nurses in New South Wales, a place that is quite a lot wealthier than us. So while we value nurses, that's why they're paid quite a significant amount. We'd like to do more. We're realistic about our constraints. That's where we've got to. Now you come to these directors, and I think there's a bit of an irony. That there are people who want the government to do lots of stuff. They want the government to run 20 state-owned businesses, which it does. They want to have the government run Health New Zealand, which is, you know, $32 billion, the biggest organisation in the country.
So they need to be paid appropriately.
Directors on that.
Yeah. Chloe, do you
but
concede that point?
Well, no,
from the
there's
government?
one more point, Ryan, is that just like the nurses have had a big uplift, these guys have been held down year after year because politicians said, I don't want to give these guys an increase because it looks bad. Well, actually, you've got to take some responsibility. If you want huge organisations run by the government, like most people on the left do, then you should have the people directing them paid reasonably well. As it happens, they're still going to be paid less than people in the private sector. So there you have it.
Chloe, do you concede that point that actually if you want decent people running them, and they're billions of dollars, some of the budgets, then and in charge of them, overseeing them, then you should pay them well?
yeah, I said this yesterday. You know, we should be paying people well for the jobs that they do and ensuring that they have safe staffing and conditions. So if we can bring this back to the nurses, we know that last year at the majority of our hospitals, half of the day shifts were understaffed. And any New Zealander who's had time in our hospitals recently will know this firsthand. Our health system is falling apart at the seams. And I'm not actually interested in the day-to-day politics of it because, yes, sure, well, we can absolutely point to the fact that this government has made it worse with the back office cuts, which has put more admin on the front line, led to more burnout, and then people leaving overseas for better paying conditions and better safe staffing levels, ultimately putting more pressure on those who are at the front line, and there's a hiring freeze. The reality is that successive governments have not invested the requisite amount in making sure that our health system is functional. So what we're interested in here as the Green Party is coming to the table constructively and saying, how do we meaningfully fix this? And the honest truth, Ryan, is that when we're talking about paying for these things that New Zealanders need and deserve, there's really only three options that we have on the table. We either fix the tax system, or we have a more grown-up conversation about how we use debt, and we do so productively, which is the opposite of what this government has done by using debt to pay for tax cuts, which has created no jobs. Or we have an honest conversation about the ramifications of public-private partnerships, which do not actually fund these things, they only finance them. What that means is that New Zealanders are still paying for the same base cost for those services being delivered, but also for the profit on top, which, guess what, contributes to a higher cost of living. So the PPPs that the government is proposing actually will only increase the cost of living for New Zealanders, and we can pay for this stuff with a fairer tax system.
Just one thing about profit. I don't know if you know much about business, but frankly, when people say a profit on top, anyone who's in business says you don't put a profit on top. It's something you make if you succeed, if you organise your resources and you deliver for your customer on time, under budget, then maybe you make a profit. And when people on the left say, oh, profit is something you put on top, it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's how it works. And while we're talking about
You're not sorry to interrupt because you're doing it again.
Another $2 billion into healthcare. If money was the problem, everything would be solved.
Okay.
We've found the magic money tree. It exists in David's pet ministry, where we're seeing public servants pay 50% more than the average public servant.
I thought you were the adult in the room.
Okay. It's just facts.
See you.
No,
Bye-bye, guys. It's over.
All right.
Good to see you.